Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your latest instalment of the Gersnet Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast made for fans by fans. All of our content is absolutely free. As always, you can get us over at gersnet.co.uk, but you can see our forum, some articles, and the wonderful history archive as well. We're live tonight on YouTube, and we'll be on all of your usual podcast providers later on as well. Please do share the pod, comment with your opinions tonight, and spread the word with your friends. Just before I introduce my guest, I need to give a shout out to our partners over at Forrest Precision Engineering. They're a subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company, and have been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for many years, and we're absolutely delighted that they're backing our podcast. You can get them over at forrestprecisioneng.com, and you can also visit the Forrest Precision Executive Lounge. It's a stunning new hospitality area within the historic main stand. For information on how to book this unique and intimate space, you can email the club via hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Joined tonight by Mr. Alan Rogers after another tremendous European night at Ibrox. Alan, how you doing?
Yeah, no, but I'm a wee bit angry, to be honest, mate. Earlier today, between searching and booking, my Bilbao hotel went up like £500 in price, and I was absolutely furious about it. So I've put a dampener on the whole night, I'm sorry to say.
It's terrible. They must know that there's going to be about 100,000 more Rangers fans coming in, mate, at some point. So
it's just profiteering. It's just profiteering, and I'm not happy about it.
I know. They're no stupid, are they? We'll cross that bridge when it comes to it, hopefully it does come to it. But where do you start, really? Not a vintage performance last night, but we got the job done. I think I wanted to start, first of all, on just the overall achievement of finishing in this top 8, and the manager commented on it last night. I think we played 3 or 4 of the top 8. No other team in the competition has done that and finished in the position that we're in. We all said before or after the draw was made, that it was a Champions League level group in terms of the level of opposition, the size of clubs, the budgets. I seen a stat today from Transfer Market that we'd outperformed our budget by 18 places. And again, we just seem to reach new heights in Europe every time. So I want to say just an amazing achievement. And I mean, at the start of this campaign, when that draw was made, did you see us being in the position that we're going to be in?
No, not even slightly, to be honest. I can remember all those months ago, the performance in Malmo, kind of coming out the blue, and you think, no, right, that's a good result. Going to Malmo, we thought a draw would be good because our record there was poor. And then to come away with a 2-0, we thought, wow, that's excellent. But then Lyon at home obviously brought us back down to the earth. It was a wee bit of a thumping, and then their finishing was so good and we just couldn't compete. And as soon as that happened, you just thought, right, this is going to be a damp squib of a European campaign, probably a damp squib of a season, to be honest. And whilst the European stuff doesn't rescue the season, you can't underestimate the level of the achievement that is. As you say, this aside from us, obviously there's 7 teams in the top 8, and we had to play 4 of them. And 2 of them were EPL sides, and then even the other one, a difficult away tie in Greece. A notoriously difficult place to go. So the fact that we've sneaked into the top 8, we've missed out a round or straight into the last 16 with this squad, and all the misgivings that we have about this squad, and indeed misgivings about the manager, it's an absolutely superb achievement. It really is. And I think it's. I'm pleased. I'm pleased for the players. I'm pleased for the manager. I'm pleased for the club and the support that we've got that to look forward to now. Because the only way we've got there is by good play. I think last night we did ride our luck. They missed some good chances and they could easily have equalised towards the end. But at the same time, we scored good goals against them. And it's the first time, I think, in Europe that we've really rode our luck this season, where we're really desperately unlucky in the Champions League qualifiers with that absurd EFD sending off. And again, we should have got a draw at Old Trafford, and we probably should have beaten Spurs, So the luck's gone against us a wee bit. So I don't think anyone can begrudge us getting the luck on our side last night for the first time in a while. And it was a really, really good feeling at the end when that music was playing, the players were celebrating, and everybody knew that we'd got through because it was such a slim chance of doing it, and it felt like a real achievement, and it was a real achievement.
Mm-hmm. No, it definitely was, and I'm pretty glad they brought Penny Arcade back. We've missed that one for a while, haven't we?
Yeah.
In terms of the starting 11, the biggest sort of surprise, if you will, was in defence, Leon King getting a start. Not just a start, but a start at right back when Tavernier was fit and available and playing at centre back, I think at that point I'm kind of going, has Clermont just done this to, like, I don't know, try and prove some sort of weird point? Like, it's kind of giving me Pedro vibes when he brought on like 3 subs at half time against Motherwell, and he was playing like Terrell and Heinemann as a centre back pairing, I'm pretty sure. But apart from that, we brought Cherny back, which I think was, it obviously was the right decision because he got his goal. You need your big players for this game. But were you surprised with the 11? Certainly the King at right back one kind of surprised me a wee bit.
Yeah, I was King was the surprising selection. And I do think you see it, given how much he's not started recently and other players are starting in front of him, to kind of throw him in that kind of big European tie, you just think, well, this is going to be rough. But other than that, I don't think the manager really had any choice, did he? It was really down to the bare bones, which again makes the achievement all the better. And you could see Cherny wasn't fit. He wasn't running full pelt, and he came off pretty much bang on the hour. It was obviously, look, we can get 60 minutes and that's enough. So we went right down to the bare bones. The bench was really, really thin. You can see from the subs as well. But in terms of the starting 11, I think the manager's hands were tied. But he must be, pulling his hair out, of course, at the options he's got, because he just doesn't have his troubles to seek in terms of injuries. And for a massive game like that, to be without 8, 9, 10 players, and then King has to come off after 15 minutes after a collision in the first minute. Again, we needed a bit of luck. We're due a bit of luck, and we got it.
Yeah, we did. To be fair, I don't think the manager's got any hair to be pulling it. But nah, I did find it a bit strange, and even the change when King came off McCausland playing as a sort of wing back, I found that a wee bit strange, to be honest. But then again, maybe it was just about managing Suter's minutes, who did obviously come back, and I did think looked pretty solid in the time that he was on the pitch. So hopefully we can get him back now. As we say, we did ride our luck a wee bit, but the goals, first one, great goal, and after the corner was taken shortly, it was a bit of a...
Two seconds, mate. Okay, I'll be right back. 2 seconds, excuse me.
No worries. Well, I'll just go on for a wee bit, and the audience can be happy, hopefully. But no, after that corner was taken, I think there was a bit of a dodgy touch by, it was either Tav or Cherny, and I was going, why have we done that? Why have we just swung the ball into the box? And then about 20 seconds later, Tav made me eat my words. A great cross in to the box, Nico Raskin with a great header. I was just saying, Alan, that when the corner was taken at the start, there was a bit of a bad sort of pass and touch. Can't remember if it was Cherny or Tav that had done it, and I was just like, oh God, why have we done that? And no, just whipped the ball right in. And about 10 seconds later, Tav made me eat my words with that cross at the back to find Raskin. A brilliant goal, really. And Tav again, his performances certainly the last couple of ones since he came back have been great. And it's actually quite interesting to see him in this new role as a centre back as well, and still managing to get assists in big games.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that. My smoke alarm started going off. My wife's cooking again, so I had to go and reset that. But no. As I've said before on this podcast, Tav's downfall was grossly overestimated. And it was really weird how a lot of Rangers fans really jumped on it and were really keen and eager to see him falter. I'll never get that mindset. But you look at Tav's season that he's had. He was injured pre-season, and he did start the season slowly. There's no doubt about that. But that's what happens when players miss pre-season. It ain't rocket science. And he had a wee spell out the team, which I think did him good because it got him fit and it got him sharp again. But since he's come back in, he's been excellent. He really has. Our uptick in form coincided with him coming back into the team. And okay, we still did falter after that. But you look at his performances this season, what are his best games? Spurs, he was excellent. Man U, he was excellent. I thought he was excellent last night, and he's assisted a goal in all 3 of those games. He is clearly good enough to continue playing at this level. And I'm pleased for him that he's back in the team and he's performing. And he's making a certain small section of the support eat their words. So it was a really nice ball in last night. It was perfect. The ball back to him, as you say, from Cherny was not good. It was bouncing all over the place, and he had to readjust to control it. But he set himself and he just put it in right to the back post, and it was absolutely perfect. And Raskin's header was perfect as well. From where I was sitting, I thought it might just be going wide or hitting the post. So I was delighted just to see it sneak into the side net. But it was a brilliant start from us. A goal from a corner So hopefully we've been working on those.
Yeah, hopefully. No, it was a nice header, and it's good also to see Raskin getting in amongst the goals. I think he's only scored once before for us, so if we can get players like him contributing in terms of goals and assists, then all the better, really. Just in terms of Tav's performances, and I don't think he's quite on the same level as he has been in the past. I mean, he has done well, but I think his game slightly changed since he's came back. And I don't know if that's maybe him that's doing it or if it's the manager maybe tinkering with the system a wee bit. But he's actually, to be quite fair to him, I think defensively he's been pretty solid, which I think for a lot of the fans was the big gripe with him that, he can't defend and stuff like that, allegedly. But I think that's maybe been his main focus first. But at the same time, he's still capable of putting in those amazing balls as well. And I think him and the manager have maybe come to, the realisation that in terms of that pace, he has lost a yard of pace. We can't deny that. So I think it's maybe just about trying to change up his game. So that's something good to see as well. And, that's what we need to try and get the best out of these players.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I think I'm right in saying I read it today. He's got 10 assists. He's the top assist provider on our team. Still, and he's 33, and he has lost a yard of pace, but he's still contributing. He's still able to put in those numbers. And I thought at centre half yesterday, because he was just concentrating on defending, obviously, because he's a centre half and he's not really focused on getting forward. I thought his reading of the game was really good, because he wasn't distracted with trying to attack. It's just like Old Trafford when he lifted his head and put that ball up for Dessers to score. He's got that vision, and he's a good reader of the game, Tav. Better than people give him credit for. But again, when we reshuffled and Suter came on and Tav moved out to the right, it did help us a little bit because Butland had that out ball, that had been lacking, because the ball to Tav's one of the first things Butland always looks for. And Tav's good at playing it up the line and sort of getting pressure away from our box. So again, it's just getting this team working in systems, getting them used to each other. But you can see the team's evolving. Clement said that in fairness to him, and he's been absolutely hauled over the coals, and people have had the knives out for him because he keeps saying, it'll take time, but it does take time. And okay, the performances still aren't where we want them, certainly domestically. But when you see the difficulties he's had with the injuries and just injury after injury, what's McCausland must be our fifth, sixth choice right back, and he's having to bring him on in a crucial European game. I mean, it's been a really, really tough gig for Clement. And I was really pleased for him that the team turned up for him last night, and he's got that achievement because he deserves it.
No, definitely. Another player whose form's had an upturn as well is Mr. Cyril Dessers. Was excellent last night. To be fair, I think you can toss a coin between him and Tav over who was the man of the match. Excellent assist for Cherny's goal. The run that he goes on, just incredible, R9-esque to say the least. But then what I really loved, or my favourite part, was that bit towards the end where he ran about 40 or 50 yards, sprinted back, and went in for that challenge, and he won the ball cleanly. And even I stood up and applauded it. That's how good it was. The thing with Dessers is, though, again, he missed a big chance to make it 3-1 and wrap the game up. But can't fault him last night, and certainly the last few weeks he's been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and people have often spoken about Rangers squads in recent seasons about mentality. They don't have the mentality to do this, that, and the other thing. Okay, they've got the mentality to get to the European final. Okay, whatever. But people have always questioned it. But someone like Dessers, to be booed onto the pitch by your own supporters is a total disgrace. I mean, it is. It just is. Yeah. And there's no excusing it at all. And you saw the interview he gave where he talked about it, and it clearly affected him. But if it's going to affect you, the best way to get those words rammed down people's throats is to turn it into performances on the pitch. And he's done that. And he, as you say, he was excellent last night. He worked really hard. Again, I think the problem with Dessers very often in the team is the ball doesn't stick up front with him enough. Igaman's good at that. He's holding on to the ball, whereas with Dessers, it doesn't stick enough. And I thought the first 30 minutes he was a wee bit guilty of that. But after that, he got better with his back to goal. His layoffs were better. He was holding it onto it better. And it culminated in that great run for the goal. And it's a good run because he gets past his man. He uses raw pace to get past him. And then he lifts his head. And then he glances. You can see he knows exactly where he wants to put it. And it's on his left foot. And he just puts it on a plate for Cherny, who can't miss. And we can level a lot of criticism at Dessers. But he must be around about 40 goals now in 18 months. I mean, nobody's telling me that's a bad return for a Rangers striker, for a guy that went through chunks as well this season and last season where he didn't start for weeks at a time. His goal return is really good. And, you know, at the moment, don't get me wrong, if someone bids 5 million for him, I'd probably be tempted to accept it and sell him. But unless it's money at that level, I just don't think we can afford to lose him. I just don't think so. And, you know, just about that tackle, as soon as he made that tackle yesterday in the stadium, I thought, right, that's him got man of the match. Because the crowd reacted to it. And it was a great tackle because he worked hard to track back. It was a dangerous attack. And he had to get the tackle spot on. It had to be perfect, otherwise it'd be a free kick in a really, really dangerous area. And he got it. And as soon as that happened, you thought, right, okay, man of the match, that's it in the bag. And I was really pleased for him, because people will say lots of things about him, but what you can't deny is that he works hard and he's a nice bloke. You know, he comes across well. He's clearly desperately keen to do well. And it's just, can the support just give him some goddamn slack, please? Because it doesn't serve anyone to be on this kind of let's see who could be the biggest dickhead towards Dessers. That's not staunch. It just makes you like a complete arsehole.
Yeah, although, I mean, let's be honest as well, most of these people doing it are guys that don't even have their faces on, you know, their profile pictures, and they've got mad weird names on Twitter and their account was created like 2 months ago. So
it's just a mentality I don't understand. You know, it's that kind of a few weeks back, you know, Dessers and Tav, you know, James Tavernier, for God's sake, were booed onto the pitch when they came on at Ibrox by their own fans. Is this seriously what's happening? Is this seriously what Rangers support's like these days? Sadly, it is. But, you know, hopefully these people stop coming to games because they're not welcome. Nobody likes them. Nobody thinks they're funny. Nobody thinks they're staunch. Just get the hell out and just get on with supporting the team, because it doesn't serve the team in any way to give them stick like that in their own stadium. And thankfully, Dessers and Tav have both made them look like total dickheads as well with their performances. So if you're one of the ones that booed these guys coming onto the pitch, you know, go and take a long walk over short pier because you're not wanted.
Yeah, I mean, certainly can't condone booing the players coming on the pitch. You need to get behind them and support them for the game at least. Obviously, everyone's entitled to their opinions, but, you know, we all want to back the team, or I think we all want to back the team for the 90 minutes and try and get them onto victory. And then if you've got any criticism, you know, maybe make your feelings known after the game, but not in a abusive way.
You know, that's what podcasts and social media and forums are all for. You know, discussing the team, and criticism where it's due is absolutely fine, but it serves no purpose during a game to get on the players' backs. Absolutely no purpose whatsoever. And it's a real poison amongst the Rangers support these days. Again, you know, people say, oh, it was always like that. No, it wasn't. It was never that bad, as it has been recently. So it's time the support just grow up and get behind the team. And this Rangers support's got a lot of growing up to do. But, you know, let's move on and let's try and get in a positive mind frame. Yeah.
Well, I was going to try and be positive, but you just caught me off guard talking about Egeman there, and I just wanted to discuss his performance slightly. It was weird because he was getting a bit of slack. I heard comments about McCoist maybe criticising him a wee bit. I don't know what he said because I was at the game. I didn't listen to his commentary on the telly, so I don't know what was said by him. I don't think he had a bad game as such. What I do think he was guilty of, though, Alan, was showboating maybe a wee bit too much. He was doing a lot of great tricks and flicks, and most of them did come off, in fairness to him, but there were times as well where you're thinking, just going to pass the ball a bit earlier, just going to maybe shoot earlier. Or actually, there was one where I thought he took a shot a wee bit too early and it went wide. And to be fair, he wasn't far away, but I felt he maybe could have ran a wee bit further forward and took it. You know, everyone's allowed a bad game, even though I don't think he had a bad game as such last night, but he's been in brilliant form the last few months. But then hopefully this is going to be a learning experience for him where the manager says, look, you have been doing well. And again, some of the stuff that he was doing last night was incredible. But as a Rangers fan, I don't want to go and see players doing tricks and flicks. I want to see them go and score goals and win games of football. So for me, that's something they could maybe try and, you know, brush up on a wee bit. But what did you make of his performance last night in total?
Yeah, well, I mean, I went on one of those websites you recommended to me where you have to click that you're over 18 to get onto it. And I clicked and said, you know, what's the top rated filth on this website? And it was a clip of that touch that Egeman took off his calf and then drove forward and used his head. And it was pornographic. It was such good skill. And if that had led to a goal, that'd have been, broadcast all over Europe and all over social media for saying, who is this kid? Look what he can do. But you're right. I thought a wee bit. I mean, first things first, he's not a left winger, right? No. And because the way the squad was, he was forced out left. He clearly doesn't enjoy playing there. It doesn't suit him. And he didn't have his best game. Someone said to me on my bus back from the game last night, he needs to remember he's not playing fives with his mates. And it was a wee bit like that. There was a few, moments where he had a nice easy pass and straightforward ball, and he tries to do something spectacular and picks the wrong option. There was one late on where he was in space, moving into their half. Yefty was running outside, and it's just such an easy ball. Just play it up the wing to Yefty, who's clean through, and he tries the spectacular going round the defence to the right hand side, and it just, it was a bit kind of, right, come on, lift your head. But as you say, he's been excellent for us, and he's a young player, and he's learning, and he was out of position. He's entitled to a bad game. And if you're going to have a bad game, do it in a game that we still win and still qualify, and he'll get away with it. So I'd like to see him given a wee bit of a rest. I think in recent months, we've played him a lot, and you've got to remember this is a kid that's coming from Morocco. He's not used to playing 3 games every 8 days. And I think he can look a wee bit tired at points. So I'd like to give him a wee rest, maybe against on Sunday, or certainly against Queen's Park in the Cup. Give him a wee rest, try and get him to recharge the batteries a little bit. Again, McCoist, I think we've seen it before. McCoist, he did it a lot with Morelos. He could do something spectacular, and he'd always weigh it up with a negative. It's probably a wee bit of the fan in him in doing commentary, because fans can be, as we discussed, hypercritical of their own team. But yeah, let's try and look at the positives with this kid, because he's been an excellent signing and he's contributed a hell of a lot so far, especially in Europe. And his ceiling, as they put it, is really, really high. So let's enjoy him while he's here.
Yeah, we'll talk about the transfer window later on, but if we're getting a bid for him this window, what would be the amount that you would accept for him?
I mean, it's got to be 15 plus. And that, that is ridiculous, right? It is ridiculous for a kid that's come from the Moroccan league, and he's only played, 20, 25 games or whatever. But, these teams can throw that kind of money at pure potential. They're happy to do it. And they will do it. I've seen, what's his name, Duran from Villa, signed him 2 seasons ago for 18 million, and he's just going to Saudi for 71. These teams can afford to throw that money at these types of players, and Duran's like 21. For someone like Igaman, if someone really wants something, come and show us the cash, because he's got 4.5 years left in his contract, and he's got that potential to go really, really far in the game. But just to be clear, I hope we hold on to him for at least another 18 months, and he can continue to progress and get better and better. Because if he can do that, then I think he'll have his pick of really, really top clubs, and that's exactly the model that Rangers need to be developing.
I know. It will be sad to see him go, but at the same time, we need to learn our lessons from, Morelos and Kent. I think more so Morelos. We knocked back a big offer in a January window, and then it was absolutely guff for the next few months before the COVID shutdown. But we do need to learn our lessons from that in the past. And I think, to be fair to Niels Coppin, having come on, I've kind of got that mentality where, we can't be emotional about these things anymore. We need to treat it as a sort of business-like transaction. And I think the best way to sell it, Alan, is, to these guys, you're coming in, you're playing for Rangers, a massive club. If you do well here, not only will you be adored and loved and respected forever in this city, and you only need to buy a drink again if you do amazing for us, but you heighten your profile, you will get a move to the Premier League or any league you want for a big amount of money. You can put them on the map, play big games in Europe. We're going to Old Trafford, we're playing Spurs. We're in the last 16 of the Europa League. So these games are broadcast all over the world. We put them in the short window. They do a job for us for 1-2 seasons. We get the money in and we do it all over again. That is the only way that we can compete or try and compete with other clubs in Europe. And the good thing about that for me is it works for both parties, because if these players come in and they're rubbish and they're crap, they're not going to get the big move to the Premier League. So even if they're not coming to, this whole play for the jersey thing and all that, they're going to be doing it for themselves. And whether they're doing it for themselves or the jersey, as long as they show up for us and put in good performances and get the job done, that's what I'm bothered about.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting today. I read a comment from Clement. It must have been from one of the interviews last night, where he's talking about like Sadowell and Matondo. And he said, look, they had to leave because of the wages they were on. And he went on to say, look, we're not giving out contracts like that anymore. And it was music to my ears. Because, these guys just weren't valued for money. And whether it was their ability, or whether it was their attitude, or whatever it may be, those days have got to be over. And it sounds like they are over. So, young, promising players that have got the correct attitude, that want to come here and, as you say, contribute for a handful of seasons and then move on to a bigger league for a nice, handsome sum. Absolutely fine by me. You're always going to have your nucleus of players, like your sort of Tabs and your Suitors and guys like that kind of stay here longer. And you just supplement those with more promising young players. And part of their duty will be to help those players develop and bring them along. But that's the model Rangers need to employ, because the TV money in Scotland is absolutely dreadful. And you get next to no money for winning any of the domestic competitions. So we have to look to Europe. We have to look at developing players on that stage and then moving them on when the time's right, because that's the only way to be a sustainable club these days. And if you can qualify for the Champions League doing it and bank 30 million just for getting there, all the better. And if you can supplement that with chunky player fees on top of it, that's the way to build the club up. And it sounds like that's what we're trying to do. Again, it's easy to say it on paper, say this is what we want to do. Executing is a whole different kettle of fish. But the first thing you need is the will, and it seems like the will is there within the club.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you there. Last bit of negativity tonight, guys, I promise, and then we'll be positive. We need to enjoy the rough of the smooth. But Jack Butland last night, he was at fault for their goal. I didn't think, again, he had a great game. Since he's came back, he's made mistakes. Obviously, the highest profile one at Old Trafford last week, which, you just can't do that. There's no excuse for it whatsoever. But, maybe you can put it down to the fact that he's obviously had his health issues at, the start of the month, and maybe it still affects him or whatnot. And we don't see the human side to that as fans. But at the same time, we sort of saw the downturn in form around March for most of the players, and that's when a lot of people started to turn on the manager as well. And I think it's probably the same for Butland. And I don't think, apart from, he has still had some good individual moments, but generally speaking, if you look at, the three off the top of my list last night, which thankfully it didn't cost us in the end, but, that could have cost us a last 16 place last night if, things went the other way. Obviously, Old Trafford, are well in the game, potentially could be a goal up, and then you go and make that mistake, and then for a period after that, it did look as if United could go on to score a couple more, and thankfully they didn't. Obviously, the highest profile won the Scottish Cup final last year. The thing with Butland is, with me, he does rarely make mistakes, but why is it when he does make a mistake, it always seems to be in a massive game? And I think that is the main worry for me now with him, and I didn't expect that I would feel like that with him, certainly after the start that he had here, and he was single-handedly keeping us in the title race for a lot of last season as well. And yeah, as I say, he still comes up with big saves, but it's just some of these, glaring errors that he's making, and it always seems to be in the big games as well. I mean, how can you sort of explain what's happened to him in his downturn of form? Because I just don't get it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm honest, from my perspective, Butland's got the rest of this season to justify that he belongs at Rangers. For me, he's made too many mistakes in big games, and it's got to the point whereby it's not a one-off. It's not an aberration. And okay, it's the life of a goalkeeper. You make a mistake, often it will lead to a goal. There's just too much evidence now for Butland, for me, in big games, where he just doesn't perform. If I'm honest, I think what's his name? I think Adam Ida owes his Celtic career to Jack Butland because of those two goals he scored against us. Because I'm not sure he's a brilliant player, but I think they've signed him on the back of those goals. And Butland has never won an Old Firm game. And and as you say, that cup final goal, the third goal at Ibrox in the 3-3, the one at Parkhead where it's like side-footed in from 25 yards and it's not even in the corner. It was a really, really dreadful goal to lose. You've got punching it into his own net. again, Old Trafford. He punched it into his own net at Fir Park as well, got away with it after VAR.
Yeah, that's true.
And then obviously last night, he was chipped on his line by a header from the edge of the box. I mean, it's really not good enough. And as I say, I like Butland, and he speaks well, he carries himself well, he represents the club with it, but his performances just aren't up to scratch. And we have to be brutal about that, because we're brutal judging other players. We really are. And Butland seemed to be getting away with quite a lot. And he was the guy in the summer, you remember, he said, I sat down with the board and asked them, what are your plans here? I want to develop this club. That's all great, but your performances on the pitch have to be up to scratch. And frankly, Butland's haven't been. And just because he's a senior player, just because he's in the leadership group, just because he's highly paid and all the rest of it, doesn't give him an excuse. As you say, that goal last night from the header could have been seriously, seriously damaging. It could have cost us millions of euros. And okay, you can't demand perfection, but you can demand basic competence. And a keeper getting a put over his own head under his crossbar from a looping header from the edge of the box, that's just not good enough. So again, it's the last bit of negativity. So let's hope it was, whether he's got a newborn or whether he had that kind of weird leg injury or whatever it may be, it's just a bit of a dip, and he can get his form back. Because if we're to salvage anything from this season, we're going to need Jack Butland. Yeah. And he needs to step up to the plate and prove that he's got the minerals to play for this club.
No, I agree. I say it's not a conversation that you want to be having, because you do like him, you do love him, because he is such a likeable guy, and as you say, he represents the club amazingly well. But that phrase "all talk, no action" kind of comes to mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's it.
You sit here and talk about being big club this, that, and the next thing until you're blue in the face. I don't really care, and I think there are a lot of players that when they come to Rangers, it's always the same. A massive club. We want to, we need to win, get this, that, and the next thing. Don't want them to say it. I want them to go out and do it.
Yeah, and that's it. Not to be too harsh on him, but when he was young, he got like 10 England caps. He's really, really highly rated. Yeah, but his career just kind of went off the rails. He was injured and then he lost form, and he kind of got a bit of a reputation for making high-profile gaffes. When he was at Stoke and things like that, and he's ended up a kind of reserve keeper. So he's coming up to Rangers, and he's been a first choice number one for the first time in a long time. And he needs to show that he's capable of that. He needs to bring consistent performances. And Jesus Christ, he needs a performance against Celtic. He really needs it, because Alan McGregor had that mystique, and obviously we had Kloss and Goro before him. Whereas in Old Firm games, they were just they had that kind of I've got this approach, and you knew they were going to perform. Whereas for me, Butland's got the opposite. He lacks big saves against Celtic. He lacks performances against Celtic, and he's losing really soft goals against Celtic, and that's a real problem. And he needs to pull it out again. If he was a 21-year-old keeper, I'd be concerned, but for a 30-year-old keeper, it's an issue. There's no doubt it's an issue. So let's hope he can pull it back and start contributing again, because he is capable. But he's got a bit to prove for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. But hopefully, he can get his form back and have a positive end to the season at least. Speaking of positives, Nico Raskin last night, I know we mentioned his goal, but just overall, since he came back from his injury, he's been immense, to be quite honest. I think certainly since he came back, I'd say probably the most consistent performer in the team. He's just went up a notch and up a level. We all knew that he's got ability and potential, but I think we're seeing a leader develop, and he's still young. I think he's only 23 or something like that. His performance against Celtic in the second, just utterly immense. Last night again, amazing. Going to Old Trafford last week, brilliant. Tottenham, brilliant. He's showing up in the big games and knowing what it's like to play for Rangers. I think the start last night that I seen of this morning, I think he made the most interceptions and something else in the entire group stage of the Europa League. Now, when you consider the level of opposition, the amount of money that teams have spent on really good midfielders, for a Rangers midfielder to be doing that, I think shows how good this guy is. I know you love Tav, but all good things must come to an end, as they say, eventually. Maybe it will happen at the end of the season, maybe it won't, but if Tav does move on at the end of the season, do you think Raskin's the one with the highest shout of becoming his replacement as the captain?
I think he's the best candidate. as it stands at the moment. Because as you say, he's just got that terrier-like quality. He doesn't give up, and he's harassing, he's intercepting, he's tackling, but crucially, when he's on the ball, he's making use of it as well. He's not just a destroyer, breaking up play. He's moving the ball with it, and he's good at getting the ball forward quickly when he wins it. And he's got that vision. And he's been such a consistent performer. It seems wild at the start of the season he wasn't getting in the team, and we're talking about selling him and everything else. Because now he's absolutely indispensable. I think I'm right in saying in this summer he's got 2 years left in his deal. So at that point, you're either selling him or renewing him. And we absolutely need to renew him, because he's credit to him. He's come in and he's really cemented his place, and he's one of the first names in the team sheet. Probably for the first time in his Rangers career. He's really made himself indispensable. And as you say, to outperform some of the centre mids in that Europa group stage is really, really impressive. Obviously, the downside is the way people are looking at him, thinking, how much will this guy cost? And we just don't want to lose him right now, because he's still got a bit of developing to do. We want him to develop here. But, Raskin's been excellent. And again, if there's to be anything positive coming from this season, he's going to be a crucial part of the team.
Yeah, he's been brilliant, to be honest. And I was a bit of a critic of him maybe the last sort of year or so, just because I don't think we were getting the best out of him and what we could get, and especially when Clement came in, because I think everybody felt that he might build the team around him. That was probably just being lazy, because they're both Belgian, but you were thinking that, and he did score in his debut, Clement's debut game. I think that was when he scored his first goal, and he did perform for a few weeks, but then it kind of dipped and stuff like that. But some of the performances the last few weeks, and actually one of the biggest compliments that I can give, that St Mirren game around Christmas, when we were absolutely honking in the first half. And all right, we weren't amazing for the whole of the second half either, but for the first sort of 20 minutes of that second half, when we got back into the game and equalised, we played some brilliant stuff, and Raskin came on and completely was the catalyst for that change of performance. Now, for a sort of sitting midfielder to be the catalyst for that change of performance, it makes it higher tempo, fast pace, moving forward. That's impressive, because normally for your sitting midfielders, it's sideways passing, being calm, composed and stuff like that. But I think Raskin's got it all. He does have that calmness and composure, but the quality we like about him most is, as you say, that terrier-like attitude. Goes into everything, nips into everything. I love all the time he's barking at the refs. I loved his comment after the Old Firm game about the booking that he got at half-time as well. Just coming out and saying it as it is. But for me, as you say, I think he's definitely the candidate going forward. But I would like to try and see us get him in a new contract, because there's going to be club sniffing about him, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely will be, but it's that kind of, he's part of the spine of the team. Like Higaman, you've got Higaman and Raskin, and then you need that solid foundation in the middle. And where Rangers have suffered is at centre half, and I think at goalkeeper as well. We just haven't had that solid base to build on. So Raskin's absolutely crucial to all of that. Just while I've got you, Craig, while we're talking about positive stuffs, and I'll put this to you, Robin Proper. The last 6 weeks, 8 weeks. What do you make of?
He's been really good. And I said after that Old Firm game in August or September that Ben Davies is better than Robin Proper. But to be fair to the guy, he's been good. And again, maybe we are too harsh on new signings when they come in. I think the thing with Proper was, though, he did come in with a bit of a reputation. I think 30 years old, the captain of 20, who we could face in the next round. And he just, it almost seems as if he couldn't suit Scottish football. But again, maybe things can just change. And, I think we come on in his signings, I don't think there's been many off the top of my head that have been a complete and utter disaster. And when I say complete and utter disaster, I mean, they've just got absolutely no ability. Even guys like Fabio Silva, he contributed. Cortez, maybe you could say that, but that's only because of the money that he's going to be costing. But at the same time, you can see the ability and potential there. And Proper was maybe the one in this, you're going, this guy's just no got it. But even with him now, you're starting to see those qualities shining through. And I did want to talk about the manager, because mentioned him earlier. He's not going to win the majority of the support back for, getting into the last 16 of the Europa League. We crave domestic success at Rangers, certainly after everything that's happened the last couple of seasons. But I've kind of been pretty consistent with my opinion on this. At the start of the season, I was fully behind him. It changed a wee bit. I think maybe the biggest time that I was against him was after that Aberdeen game at Pittodrie, and that was me really questioning some of his decisions. He's kind of brought me back round again, but now I think I'm in a good balance mode where my opinion is we keep him going till the end of the season and then review the decision then in terms of the manager, and then we'll see where we're going, because there's a player there, there's a manager there in Clermont. I think you do get a lot of fans online, and I don't know if it's because they're just idiots or they're angry or whatever, but the people that say, he's not got a tactical bone in his body, he doesn't know what he's doing, this, that, and the next thing. At the end of the day, the guy won 3 league titles in a row in Belgium, which is a tougher league than Scotland. He's played at the highest level in football, played at World Cups. Yeah, maybe you could make the argument that what he wants to do in his style might not be suited to certainly away games in Scottish football. But this whole thing that he doesn't know what he's doing, etc., etc., I'm sorry, it just doesn't wash with me. I think it's quite a lazy opinion to have. And the one thing that has went against Clement for me is the injuries, because he did come in a year ago and say, I'm going to sort this. And a year later, you could argue that it's actually worse. And it is also now his players that are getting injured. But with everything else, I think there are signs there that there is progress now. And as I say, I think given to the end of the season and review it, nobody, we live in such a sort of binary world where it's like, come on in, come on out. I think there is this sort of bit in the middle where, we can't keep sacking managers midway through a season. The whole reactionary thing, just get rid of him, blah, blah, blah. Who are you going to bring in? Who's actually going to want to take the job? Do you know what I mean? Like, what reasonable manager will want to take the job? So I think you mentioned it about Dessers earlier. I think some of the fans need to cut the manager a wee bit of slack as well, because I think there is something there with him, and I do hope he can succeed, but I do think the right course of action would be to review it at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you talk about we live in a binary world. I must correct you, Craig. These days we are very much a non-binary world. I'll have you know. Here at Gersnet, it's everyone and anyone.
Of course.
But it's true. I mean, I agree with that, because the situation with Cologne isn't binary for me, because you've got a guy who clearly is struggling with away games in the SPFL. Up against big lumpy strikers that play with their elbows up. We are struggling to cope with that kind of match. Conversely, though, you look at the European results against much, much higher level of team, against much better players. The tactical approach can be very good, and the performances can be very good. And it's really difficult to square that in your own head, that these absolute jobbers that play for like St Mirren and teams like that can get one over on us, where Spurs and Man U struggle. It's such a strange situation for us to be in. But I really, really value European progress. And the club value it. And you've seen the consistent performances we've put in since Gerrard came in. It's the best run of consistent European form in my lifetime. And I'm old enough to remember 9 in a row domestic domination. Europe, bar 2 seasons, was dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. Knocked out by tiny teams with a tenth of our budget. It was completely unacceptable. And now we're almost in the opposite side of things, whereby European performances are really consistent and good and acceptable, but we just can't get the domestic side right. And it's so hard to get your head around that. But you've got to look at it and say, look, in terms of this club progressing, it needs to progress in Europe. It needs to. If this model's going to work about, player model and everything else, Hamza Agaman scoring a couple against St Mirren, nobody cares. See if he scores one against Spurs. That's what people look at. In terms of scouts, in terms of bringing in money and developing players and everything else. Alan Hutton had a brilliant 6 months for Rangers, but nobody cared until he started doing it in the Champions League. And then he got his big move. And I think the board will be looking at Clement and saying, this guy's doing well for us in Europe. No matter how this season ends, he's done well for us in Europe. We've got a situation now whereby we can give him another summer, hopefully finely tune the squad, get some added quality, get the squad fit, and then we've got Champions League qualifiers. Do you trust Philippe Clement to get us through Champions League qualifiers? I think he's got a decent shot. I really do. And if
To
he
be
can do
fair,
that,
I think we would have qualified. I mean, I know we had another round to go, but if we don't get that EFT red card against Dynamo Kiev, I think, we would have went through that game anyway. But even, the next round, I still think we would have probably got through that as well. So
yeah, and that's exactly it, and that's a lot of value to that. If you've got a manager that you trust to get you through those two-legged ties, and you can somehow do it, you can squeak through, and you're in the Champions League, and that's worth 30 million and all this kind of stuff, and then you're in this group stage where it's 2 million for a win and all this kind of thing. It can transform the fortunes of the club. Now, okay, domestically, you might not be lifting trophies, which we don't like, especially because if we don't win them, we know who is going to win them. But for the way the club is at the moment, I think the board would be really, really tempted to stick with Philippe Clement. And I'd said on this podcast a while back, maybe the last time I was on, I expected him to get sacked at some point. Now, I'm going to do a complete 180 on that because now I'm absolutely convinced he will remain until the summer at the very least because of the turnaround, because of the European performances. And, of course, it brought in a new assistant manager for him and everything else.
Yeah.
So it looks like the board are really committing to it. And fair play to them. It might not work. Who knows how this project's going to end. But they seem to be sticking to the word and saying that they believe in him. So, he just needs the opportunity to do it. Yeah. Now, of course, let's see how we get on. But, when do we next go to Parkhead? Is it March at some point?
Yeah.
If we go to Parkhead and we're poor and we take a sore one or something like that, the knives will be right back out. Of course they will. Yeah. Of course they will. But that's just the nature of Scottish football. The flip side is also true. If we go to Parkhead and can produce the performance like we produced in the last Old Firm game, then suddenly it'll be like, oof, maybe he's turned it around. So, you're only as good as your last result and all that kind of stuff. But the manager deserves credit. It's a really good achievement in terms of the top 8. The squad is improving tactically in Europe. I think he's decent. And we'll finally get something to get behind. But, of course, domestic away form needs to be sorted out, and it needs to be sorted out yesterday because it's really, really poor.
The thing with Clement as well is, see the things that we've asked for in terms of recruitment and transfer strategy. He's doing it, but then people seem to moan when the actual, realistic effects of that take place. Like we all say, we all wanted them, our previous managers, get rid of the Goldsons and the Lindstroms and blah, 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 the Roofs and the Jacks that, are always injured and can't contribute. He done that. They say we need to bring in young, hungry players that we develop and sell on the cheap and sell on for a big fee. He's doing that, and we're saying now even the likes of Dow and Matondo, who aren't old, but, they're hardly kicking the ball and they're getting, ridiculous amounts of money for it, trimming the wage bill. We need to do that. He's also done that. We need to bring in young Scottish players. He's brought in Conor Barron, may or may not bring in Lyle Cameron. I think Coppin said that they want to bring in at least one sort of, other SPL type player in every season. So all the things that we have asked for as supporters the last 2 or 3 years that we didn't get under Gio or Beale, or even Gerrard to some extent as well, because Gerrard did sign a lot of, de facto experienced players. But we're getting that now with Clement. But yeah, again, it's like, when the actual reality of that situation kicks in, the fans can't handle it. And I know what it's like as football fans, we're all fickle as anything, but at the end of the day, I said at the start of the season that things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. And for once, I was actually proved right. But this, and, I'm not sitting here saying that I'm happy we're in the situation that we're in, because I'm not. But you're feeling towards something and the reality of something is two completely different things. The reality of this season was always going to be it's a transitional season. Now, I get the fact that that's all we've heard for the last couple of years as well. But I think this is the first time where you've actually seen it in operation. And at the end of the day, the results have shown that this is what a transitional season's like. You get highs, you get lows, you get the in-betweens. And I'm not happy we're in the situation that we're in, obviously, but at the end of the day, that is the reality of the situation. Coming out and saying, realistically, it's, a transitional season doesn't make you a happy clapper. It just makes you aware of the actual reality of the truth of what's going on.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Clement, I mean, it's difficult for him because he's been in 2 cup finals. He's been in 3 cup finals since he got here. He won 1 and 2 he's lost. We were the better team in both. Some of the refereeing decisions that went against us in both was, it's really, really fine margins for him. Really fine. And even the record in Old Firm games, it wasn't good. But the only real, the real kicking we took is the one at Parkhead earlier this season. We lost 3-0. The others have all been, a goal. We've lost it by a goal. And again, you look at some of the
refereeing decisions.
There's quite a consistent pattern there, but let's not get into it. But, it's been really fine margins for Philippe Clement, and I feel for him in that sense. Equally, I do think he's got to do better in certain aspects. He's got to be more pragmatic at times, but we're now looking at playing 2 up front domestically, which is, absolutely what we need. There's nothing to fear from these SPFL teams. There really isn't. And if you're just going 1 up front, you're just playing right into their hands. That run of form we had Igaman and Danilo playing and Hadji playing, and Cherny playing. Just go for them. Just go for their throw. You've got better quality than them, and it should shine through 99 times out of 100. And it's, as soon as we went back to sort of 1 up front, isolated, it kind of fell apart again. So he's got to learn from that. I think he is learning from that. And I don't think he's perfect. I still think at times, we don't control games. I think we saw it last night. We're 2-0 up. We want to just be mature and just control the game and just see it out, and we just couldn't do it. We just couldn't get the ball. The last 20 minutes was kind of, watching through the cracks in your fingers type. And we've done that quite a lot. We just failed to get our foot in the ball and just play the game out. But it's a transitional season. It's a bit of a disjointed team with the injuries haven't helped. And we need to see what this guy can do with a fully fit squad. We need to. And we've brought in new sports scientists and all this kind of stuff. Let's hope we can get a decent pre-season under our belts and get a fit squad, because that hopefully will give us a much, much better level of consistency. Because even look at last night, man. Bringing on Lovelace is great, but it's not ideal. Bringing on Ncio for his second appearance or something like that. Again, it's in a way that's great. He's bringing on a youngster, but is it because he's earned his chance, or is it because we've got nobody else?
Yeah.
And it's difficult. And I'd hate to be harsh. I thought Ncio was completely lost when he came on. If I'm honest, I thought he just chased the ball and they just passed it around him, and it was a difficult shift for him even for 10 minutes. So no harm to him. He'll be a better player for that experience. But it was one of those subs out of necessity, I feel. But I'd far rather see Ncio come on than Lawrence, who was on the bench. And that I think shows what direction the manager wants to try and take the squad, and that's a positive. So he deserves a bit of slack. There's this kind of again a section of the Rangers support that just take their cues from Celtic these days. Chris Sutton calls Tav a serial loser, and then before you know it, all Rangers fans are coining that phrase. You see McGregor calling Barisic like a shite bag, and suddenly all Rangers fans are jumping on that.
Well, it's like the Belgian waffle one.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Yeah. Chris Sutton says Belgian waffle, and suddenly all these Rangers fans adopt it. And I'm like, get off your knees and stop paying attention to what Celtic cheerleaders are saying. There's nothing worse than a self-loather. So just think for yourself and just get behind your own team and stop taking your cues from Celtic and their fans. Because looking at it optimistically, there are things to be positive about this Rangers squad. So let's hope we can push it to the end of the season.
Well, that's it. That's all we can really do. Try and push as far as we can until then. Just last year, then obviously we've got a game on Sunday coming up against Ross County. Pretty near enough perfect home record domestically. Apart from that Dundee United game, we gubbed Ross County 6-0 at Hampden earlier this season. It was a brilliant performance. Away from home, one of our rare away wins. Pretty comfortable 3-0 win. So naturally, this will be the game on Sunday that Ross County show up and beat us at Ibrox for the first time. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But in terms of the starting 11, are you expecting many changes? Do you think maybe the likes of Lawrence will come in? What about even Igaman as well? Do you think he might be tempted to bring in Hadji for him instead of Dessers and just continue playing Dessers?
I'd like to see a bit of rotation, if I'm honest. Again, the players will have given a lot on Thursday night, and a home game against Ross County should be a banker. So bringing in players, and again, Lawrence again, he's may as well play him if he's here. Guys like Lawrence and that. Dessers I think will probably play. I'd maybe give like Igaman and Cherny a rest. Hopefully bring in Suter, get some minutes in his legs. I'd like to see Fernandez. Coming in again, a home game against Ross County. Surely he's fit enough for that to challenge himself. And I'd like to see some rotation there, just to give a bit of a rest, because we're now in this situation whereby we've freed up a couple of midweeks in February, and we've now got Ross County at home, Queen's Park at home. These are sorts of games that we'd like to think that we should be able to do a bit of rotation, and Let's hope we see that on Sunday, because we should still have enough in the tank to beat Ross County. Touch wood. But as you say, our home form has generally been good, so I think we should be safe enough doing a bit of rotation. Whether that means maybe Kelly comes in as well, just to give Butland a wee bit of chance to sharpen up. And again, I'd like to see the likes of Lovelace start. Again, if we've got optimism about his progress, play him a home game against Ross County. Let's see what he can do. Give him that chance to impress. It's just a shame guys like Cortez and Barron and the likes are injured, because it'll be the perfect game for these guys to come in and take the pressure off some of the first 11. Sterling as well. I mean, I don't even know where Sterling is now. He just doesn't even get mentioned anymore. Ridvan's just disappeared with some mysterious injury. It's really frustrating that these guys aren't available to step in when the squad needs them. I
know. But yeah, I think rotation might happen Sunday. Then again, it's a weird one for the manager, because we've got that sort of week break before a game against Queen's Park that we should win. So they're one of those ones that you just go all out with the best 11 you can on Sunday, and then they're going to get a week's rest anyway, and rotate next week against Queen's Park. But I don't know. We'll see what happens anyway. At the end of the day, it is down to the manager. But I think that's a good point to finish up on there, Alan. Thanks very much for joining me. This Sunday will be Brian on with Ross and Colin to review the Ross County game, and maybe even bring a bit of positive transfer news. Nope, I'm not joking. But thanks very much for joining me tonight, Alan. That was great. Enjoyed that.
Yeah, good to see you again, mate. Take care.
You as well. And thanks to the audience at home. See you soon, guys. Bye-bye.